themselves and throwing the board into chaos. Yet Ernie and Justin enjoyed it, even debating the pieces together. At noon, they enjoyed a lavish feast in the hall. Over 100 turkeys, mountains of Christmas pudding, and heaps of Cribbage Wizard biscuits. In the afternoon, they headed outdoors. The snow lay pristine, mostly untouched, except for deep tracks left by Durmstrang and Beauxbaton students returning to the castle. They built several chubby snowmen and stamped Hufflepuff into the snow. By 5:30, Susan and Hannah had grown tired and went upstairs to prepare for the ball. When Derek decided to return to the dorm at 6:30, the remaining students reluctantly abandoned their snow games, changed into formal robes, and readied themselves for the dance. Though nearly everyone had high expectations for the Christmas ball, donning the various formal dresses made them all awkward and nervous. Zacharias seemed particularly uneasy, likely worrying that his 3 unfriendly dorm mates would mock him. Once dressed, he hurried out. "Are you okay?" Ernie kept adjusting his beige bow tie. "I feel like it's crooked." "You're definitely better than me," Justin said anxiously, tugging at his dark red robe. "I feel like a mobile, human-shaped blot of blood." "Maybe this will dampen your confidence a bit, but I have to say it to help you relax," Derek said, fiddling with the brooch Hermione had given him in the half-length mirror. "As long as you don't run out without underwear, the whole school won't erupt. So relax and adjust yourself to your most comfortable state." Instead, his words only made them more tense. By 7:30, unable to tolerate his slow-moving roommates any longer, Derek left the common room and entered the crowded entrance hall. Students milled about, waiting for the hall doors to open at 8. Some squeezed through the crowd to meet partners from other houses. Derek drew a few curious glances. Justin and Ernie had kept quiet, and Hermione, being his partner, had not been revealed. People only knew he had a partner, not who it was. Some intrigued eyes followed him, eager to see whom Hogwarts' first champion had chosen. Fleur Delacour approached in a shimmering silver-gray gown, stunning as ever, accompanied by Ravenclaw Quidditch captain Roger Davies. "Good evening, Mr. Greengrass," Fleur tossed her silver hair. "And your partner?" "She needs ample time to prepare for the ball," Derek replied. "I'd like to see this young lady," Fleur said proudly. "I hope she can match the elegance of this event." Before Derek could respond, a slender hand looped through his arm from behind. "Hello, Miss Delacour, Mr. Davies," Hermione said in a tone of elegance Derek had never heard before. "You two make a fine pair tonight." Fleur scrutinized them for half a second, then silently dragged Davies away. "Wow, the girls' competition," Derek began jokingly, but froze at the sight of the girl beside him. It was Hermione, yet she looked entirely different. Her hair was sleek and shiny, swept into a graceful chignon at the back, adorned with the purple and gold ornament Derek had given her for Christmas. Her gown flowed in shades of pale purple and blue, and somehow her presence felt different, freer, lighter, perhaps without the 20-plus heavy books she usually carried, or the intense focus she wore when studying. Her lips curved slightly, a hint of restrained determination in her expression. 2 rosy flushes appeared on her smooth cheeks, and she shot Derek a sideways glance. "You're not thinking of switching places with Davies, are you?" "No, absolutely not," Derek said instantly. "I just suddenly thought of a study question." "A study? Question?" Hermione blinked for a moment, then stepped closer, seemingly unable to suppress the thirst for knowledge in her blood. "What question? I just realized tonight you are the most beautiful girl at this ball," Derek said with a smile. Joy sparkled in Hermione's eyes, and her hand on his arm tightened ever so slightly. "Even more beautiful than Delacour?" "Of course," Derek said confidently. "I turned down her invitation earlier. She probably saw me alone and wanted to mock me, but when you arrived, she left immediately. Isn't that a sign of insecurity?" Hermione smiled shyly, lowered her head, and helped adjust the brooch on his robe. The oak front doors opened, and everyone turned to see Professor Karkaroff of Durmstrang entering with a Beauxbaton's girl. Krum led the way. Over their heads, Derek saw a patch of the castle lawn transformed into a rocky grotto, dotted with sparkling fairy lights. Professor McGonagall's voice rang out, "Champions, please gather here." The chattering crowd pressed together, trying to make a path for them. Hermione cleared her throat and clutched Derek's arm tightly as they walked forward. Professor McGonagall, wearing a long red plaid robe with a wreath adorning the brim of her hat, called them to wait by the door, letting others pass first. Once the students were seated, they queued and entered the great hall. Fleur Delacour and Roger Davis stood nearest the door. Davis could hardly believe his luck at having Fleur as his partner, unable to take his eyes off her. Harry and Parvati Patil were beside them. Harry's gaze shifted toward them, then he gasped in surprise, clearly realizing who Derek's partner was. "Hello, Harry," Hermione said nervously, smiling. "Hello, Parvati." Both Harry and Parvati stared at Hermione like strangers. They weren't the only ones. When the champions entered the hall, everyone sized up the four champions and their partners, and Derek keenly heard more than one person asking nearby if the girl beside him was a Boton student. They filed in, heading toward the large round table at the front where the judges sat, and the hall erupted in applause. Chapter 63, The Yule Ball 2, Revised. The walls of the great hall shimmered with glistening silver frost, the ceiling a starry night sky, hundreds of small mistletoe sprigs and ivy wreaths hanging above. The 4 house tables were gone, replaced by 100 small lantern-lit tables, each with about 10 seats. Derek felt Hermione's tension, her body stiff and rigid, so he slowed his pace, subtly pressing his arm to support her. Approaching the high table, he spotted Justin and Ernie. Justin's partner was Hannah, and Ernie's was a slightly petite Beauxbaton student. He also noticed Padma Patil, a Ravenclaw friend from divination class, with her partner Ron Weasley. The champions reached the high table. Dumbledore smiled warmly. Karkaroff looked imperious upon seeing Krum and his partner, and Ludo Bagman, in a vivid purple robe, clapped enthusiastically. Madame Maxim wore a flowing pale purple dress, expression calm. Bartemius Crouch wasn't present. Percy Weasley sat in his place. Derek released Hermione's arm and hurried a step ahead to pull out a chair for her. Hermione's lips parted slightly, her brown eyes showing mild surprise. Seeing his quick glance, her lips curved into a soft smile as she blushed lightly and sat down. Davis immediately followed suit. Harry, already kneeling by Percy, leapt up as if on fire to help Parvati into her chair, but stumbled on his dark green robes. Luckily, Percy reacted quickly, catching him in time. Everyone nearby stifled laughter. "Etiquette manual, right?" Hermione asked, smiling. "You know I like to be prepared for important events," Derek said gently. "The ball is no exception." Hermione glanced at her embarrassed friend and whispered, "Harry nearly embarrassed himself just now." Derek spread his hands. "He's a seeker. Of course he's watching his feet. But sure, you can blame me too for being too perfect." Hermione lightly nudged his foot under the table. The banquet had begun, yet the gold and plates were empty. Only small menus were laid before each person. Dumbledore studied his menu and clearly said, "Pork chop!" The pork chop appeared instantly. Others at the table quickly followed suit, selecting their desired dishes. Derek thought about the house elves, who must be working extra hard to serve this new style of dining. He glanced at Hermione, but she just smiled back. "Something wrong?" Their eyes met, and Hermione shyly looked away, brushing a stray strand of hair. She teased, "Aren't you going to continue showing your gentlemanly manners, Derek?" All right. Let's see," he said, focusing on the menu, spotting a few unexpected items. "Alaskan cod fillet." He handed his plate to Hermione. "Didn't expect to see American cuisine at Hogwarts? Want to try?" She smiled, spearing a piece of golden fish and taking a small bite. Derek felt a flutter of unease. After chewing for a few seconds, her eyes lit up. She finished the piece, smiling as she pushed the plate back toward him. The crust is crisp, but the inside is tender, fresh, and flavorful. Delicious. She picked up another piece, offering, "You try some, too. See if it tastes like in America?" Derek exhaled softly, feeling a quiet pride, and tapped the plate on the table. "We'll need a pair of chopsticks for this." After saying that, he shook his head slightly. Asking the kitchen at a British magic school to provide Chinese utensils was, after all, wildly unrealistic. Yet, to his surprise, within 2 seconds a pair of silver chopsticks appeared beside him. "Ha! What a pleasant surprise!" He picked up a piece of fish and tasted it, feeling the thrill of discovering a new world. This Christmas feast is really something. They even cater to such unusual requests. These are common utensils in Asia, right?" Hermione asked with interest. "I've seen them in craft stores. More precisely, they were invented by the Chinese, Derek corrected. Want to give them a try? Sure. Hermione copied him eagerly, taking an identical pair of silver chopsticks and twirling them in her hands with excitement. See, you hold one with your thumb, index, and middle fingers and stabilize the other with the space between your thumb and ring finger. Derek demonstrated slowly. Then align them over the plate. Clatter. One chopstick slipped from Hermione's hand, landing on the plate. Her eyes widened, mouth forming a small oval. They're so slippery I couldn't grip them. No worries, mistakes are normal. Derek guided her fingers around the chopsticks. Try again. Thumb, index, middle, then press with your thumb space and ring finger. Let me help you align them. Feel the tension with your fingers. Open them. Position the chopsticks on either side of the food, then close and lift. It's okay, we'll try again. Remember to support with your ring finger. Again. Through gripping, dropping, and trying again, Hermione quickly learned. 10 minutes later, she was clumsily but successfully using the chopsticks. She became completely absorbed in the fun of using them, eagerly picking up whatever Derek pointed out, chatting happily without seeming to notice what she was eating. When my parents weren't home, I sneaked into a Chinese restaurant in New York's Chinatown. The owner was a tall, burly man who thought I was a mischievous kid and threatened to call the police. I told him, hey, Mr. Lee, let's make a bet. Can I pick up 20 peanuts with chopsticks? If I win, you give me a free lunch today. If I lose, you can call the police. Care to try? Hermione propped her left hand on her cheek, using an awkward grip with the right to pick up a shrimp, listening intently, eyes sparkling. You're so good with chopsticks, you surely wouldn't lose, she said. Exactly. I won, clean and easy, Derek said nostalgically. I picked up 20 peanuts in under a minute. The owner, the chef, and the staff were all stunned. So you got a free lunch? Hermione laughed. Plus 20 peanuts. Derek took a big sip of pumpkin juice, making Hermione wrinkle her nose and poke him with the other end of her chopsticks. You're too sly. May poor Mr. Lee have divine patience. Does Mr. Krum need help with the menu? Derek suddenly asked Victor Krum a few seats away. You've been watching us for a while. Krum's gloomy face turned slightly embarrassed, his eyes darting toward Hermione. No, thank you, he said stiffly, lowering his head over his Hungarian goulash. His partner, a Beauxbatons girl whose name Derek still didn't know, glared at Hermione with thinly veiled hostility. After a while, she relaxed, expressionless, eating her pasta. Hermione's smile faltered slightly. She set down her chopsticks, took a deep breath, and looked at Derek uneasily. Do you want some soup? Derek asked. How about a bowl of borscht? Thank you, Hermione said hesitantly. I didn't tell you. Krum invited me to the library the day after you invited me. Of course, I refused. That's nothing, Hermione, Derek said frankly. It's normal for girls to receive invitations before the ball. Hermione bit her lip lightly. You really think that? I'm not petty about these things, Derek said. Or let's look at it differently. He placed the borscht in front of her. Draco invited me too. Does that make you upset? A little, Hermione admitted softly. Ah, sorry, I forgot. Derek scratched the bridge of his nose awkwardly. How about this? We each get one invitation, then it's even. What? Hermione asked, puzzled. Even, Derek said naturally. Krum invited you, Draco invited me. But in the end, we became each other's dance partners. Think about it. No need to worry so much. A faint blush spread across Hermione's cheeks. She nodded subtly. Derek exhaled quietly. Life coaching clearly wasn't his forte. Meanwhile, Fleur Delacour criticized Hogwarts decorations to Roger Davies. This isn't much, she said, surveying the twinkling walls. At Beauxbatons, our hall is filled with ice sculptures at Christmas. Of course, they never melt, like giant diamond statues sparkling in the hall. The food is top-notch. We even have forest nymph choirs singing nocturnes while we eat. And we have no ugly suits of armor. If any mischievous ghost trespasses, they're immediately driven out. Just like this. She tapped the table impatiently. Roger Davies listened, enchanted, repeatedly mishandling his fork. Derek noticed he was entirely focused on Fleur, paying no attention to her words. Exactly, Davies exclaimed, clumsily mimicking Fleur's table tap. Just like that, yes. Derek couldn't help but laugh. But Hermione was clearly annoyed by Fleur. No one's forcing you to stay here, she murmured. You could have spent Christmas on the carriage, you know. She's a champion, too. She'll have to dance later, Derek reminded her. Yeah, yeah. I hope she finishes the first dance and goes back to that pumpkin carriage to relive her glorious memories, Hermione said bluntly. She's constantly complaining about Hogwarts. It's so irritating. Fortunately, Dumbledore stood up just then, and Fleur held her tongue, allowing Hermione to keep her good mood. Derek glanced around the great hall. Looks like everyone's finished eating, he said, raising an eyebrow at Hermione. The ball is about to begin. Are you ready, Miss Granger? Chapter 64, The Yule Ball. With most of the food finished, Dumbledore raised his hand, signaling the students to stand. With a flick of his wand, all the tables zipped to the walls, leaving a wide open space in the center. He then conjured a raised stage along the right wall, set with a drum kit, several guitars, a lute, a cello, and a few organs. A group of witches with thick hair, wearing deliberately tattered black robes, stepped onto the stage and took their instruments. Derek guessed they were a popular girl band in the British wizarding world, as the audience erupted into thunderous applause. The hall lights dimmed. The lanterns along the walls went out, while the lights over the dance floor slowly brightened, signaling the start of the ball. Derek took Hermione's hand. Ready, Miss Granger? He asked again, smiling. Ready to start the dance with me? I'm ready, Hermione said, her voice unusually serious, and Derek felt her palm a little damp against his. They have a lot of fans among the students, he said, raising his chin, trying to distract her from her nerves. I'm not sure, Hermione whispered. The Weird Sisters seem to be a very famous group on Wizarding Wireless Network. You're one step ahead of me, Derek said, feigning mock disappointment. I didn't even know the band's name. Hermione couldn't help but laugh. In the dim lighting, Derek noticed something. Is this the lighting, or... Before he could finish, the Weird Sister struck up a slow, melancholic tune. He led Hermione into the brightly lit dance floor, placing his left hand on her waist and gently holding her left hand with his right. At first, their coordination was awkward, their steps barely matching the rhythm, but as the music progressed, they grew attuned to each other, their eyes meeting as they glided gracefully. Hermione gradually relaxed, her hand on his shoulder loosening. Soon, more students joined the dance floor, and the champions were no longer the center of attention. Justin and Hannah danced nearby, moving with stiff, awkward smiles. Dumbledore waltzed with Madame Maxim, his tall, thin frame making him look almost dwarfish beside her. His pointed hat barely cleared her chin. Her steps, however, were surprisingly elegant for someone so tall. Harry, meanwhile, moved stiffly under Parvati's guidance, his expression blank. Thank you for the Christmas gift, Derek, Hermione said as he lifted her left hand and spun her, her right brushing the butterfly hair accessory in her bun. It's beautiful. I'm glad you like it, Derek replied with a smile. The brooch you gave me also matches my robe perfectly. Because I wrote to ask Sirius about it. Hermione's voice softened. What? Derek didn't catch her words over the music. Nothing. Hermione lowered her head, a flush rising in her cheeks. The organ struck its final trembling note, and the Weird Sisters paused. The hall erupted into applause. Derek spun Hermione a few more times before stopping. Shall we continue? He asked. Of course. This piece is lovely. Hermione adjusted her hair, her brown eyes sparkling. The Weird Sisters began a new, much faster tune. Now in perfect sync, they danced even more lightly and freely. Hermione was fully relaxed. In the final brisk sequence, they attempted a quick step, usually unfamiliar to them, and executed it flawlessly, their rhythm impeccable. Nearby, Ginny watched enviously, frowning and dodging, as her partner Neville's clumsy steps kept treading on her feet. The two of them danced 6 consecutive dances, their steps tracing every tile of the ballroom floor. Hermione was starting to feel tired. Fine beads of sweat dotted her temples, and her breathing had grown slightly hurried. Let's take a break, Derek suggested, feeling a faint warmth rising from his hair. I'll get some drinks. Why don't you sit down and wait for me? Hermione nodded, cheeks flushed, and he led her off the dance floor. On the way, they had to step aside for Fred Weasley and Angelina Johnson, who were dancing with such abandon that everyone nearby scrambled out of the way to avoid being bumped. Derek released Hermione and made his way to one of the long tables that lined the area below the stage, a table often used for meals by the 4 houses. Drinks and desserts were piled high in castle-like arrangements, glassware glinting under the lights. He picked up 2 glasses of iced lemonade, his gaze flicking toward the chocolate chip ice cream. After a brief hesitation, he retrieved his wand from a hidden pocket at his waist. His robes were form-fitting and levitated 2 scoops of ice cream above his shoulders. "Ha! What a fine ball! Perfect for young people like you." A hoarse voice came from behind, and Moody, not leaning on his cane, clumsily approached, his magical eyes spinning wildly. "Good evening, Professor. Would you like me to fetch you a drink?" Derek asked politely, slipping his wand back into his pocket. "No need. I don't trust anything from the outside," Moody growled, taking a long swig from the curved flask hanging at his waist, shivering slightly. "Merlin knows what tricksters might be plotting behind my back." Thank you for the advice," Derek said, feeling uneasy around Moody since their first defense against the dark arts lesson. He gestured subtly to the lemonade in his hands and the ice cream floating above his shoulders. "Merry Christmas! My dance partner is waiting for me." Moody said nothing further, merely giving a casual nod with his scarred head, essentially letting him be. Derek tiptoed along the edge of the dance floor, scanning the table for Hermione. Hermione walked toward Harry and Ron with light, cheerful steps, stopping a few paces away and spinning happily, her smile radiant. Then, as if unsure how to display her emotions, she settled beside them, hands on her knees, her cheeks slightly flushed from the dancing. "Isn't it hot?" she said to herself, fanning herself with her hand. Derek went to get drinks. Ron opened his mouth, then closed it, his Adam's apple bobbing as though words were caught in his throat. "I didn't expect your dance partner to be Derek," Harry said. "You two are really in sync. Thank you. I didn't expect us to dance so well either." Hermione replied, her eyes and smile full of warmth. "Maybe it's the atmosphere, all the people dancing, the energy is amazing. And Derek, his steps are steady, always guiding me." Ron gave her a sour look. "Derek?" he said. "Did he ask you to call him Del?" Hermione stared at him in surprise. "What's gotten into you?" "If you haven't realized," Ron said bitterly, "I'm not going to tell you." Hermione glanced between him and Harry, who shrugged, equally puzzled. "Ron, what are you?" "Being the dance partner of a champion is a big deal, right?" Ron said. "So if you don't want others to know, that's fine. But I think you could at least tell me and Harry, your 2 best friends. We could help you deal with his admirers, couldn't we?" Hermione's mouth fell open in shock. "This is my private matter, Ron," she said after a moment. "Honestly, at a Christmas ball, who isn't excited? We're all preparing, wanting to show our best side. That's personal. I don't want to share, and you should respect my choice. Have I ever mocked your robes?" Ron rolled his eyes, ignoring her. "He probably asked you while you were in the library doing homework together, right?" "No, Hermione said, her cheeks burning even brighter. "No, why would I tell you that?" "Too bad he doesn't support your vomiting, or else you two would really be kindred spirits, attending classes, doing homework, reading together. You could ask Professor McGonagall about joining Hufflepuff, or have him come to Gryffindor." "Hi, Mio Ni." Victor Krum approached Hermione with a slight bow, arms raised. "May I have this dance?" "I'm a bit tired. I don't want to dance," Hermione said irritably. "Thank you for asking, Mr. Krum." "You should say yes, Hermione," Ron said sarcastically. "Then dance with Harry afterward. Every girl at Hogwarts will envy you. You're the dance partner of 3 champions. Krum's gaze swept from Ron back to Hermione. "I don't want to dance right now." Hermione snapped at Ron, covering her eyes and taking a deep breath. She forced a polite tone toward Krum. "Sorry, please ask someone else." "Apologies for the disturbance." Krum's expression darkened, and he awkwardly walked away, shoulders hunched. "Listen here, Ron Weasley." Hermione stood, looking down at him with fierce eyes. "Who I choose to dance with is my business, and no one has the right to interfere." "Really? I think you haven't properly considered your friends in this matter. This could lead to big problems," Ron said sharply. "What problems?" "Isn't it obvious? Derek Greder is a champion too. He knows who your best friends are. Last semester, you weren't this close. Now he just wants to get close to Harry, to spy on him, to help Hufflepuff win the Triwizard Tournament." Hermione was furious, as if Ron had slapped her. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "Let me tell you something. He's never seen Harry as a rival. He even told Harry about the first task himself. Did you not tell this idiot? Hermione's eyes shot toward Harry, full of anger. Harry shrank back a little, and Ron immediately switched tactics at lightning speed. So he wants you to help him figure out what that golden egg means. I bet you two were cozy in the library, heads bent together. Yes, I was helping Derek study the golden egg. And what were you doing? Hermione practically exploded. While we were stuck next to dusty shelves getting all grimy, you and you. She pointed at the two boys, relaxing in the common room, playing cards, chatting. How dare you say such a thing? I want both Harry and Derek to succeed in the tasks, and I'm working for that. Harry knows it too, doesn't he? Your method of expressing yourself is peculiar, Ron sneered. Are you two arguing again on a day like this? I got ice cream, which you guys probably haven't even tasted. Derek appeared, carrying a cup of lemonade in one hand and an ice cream perched on his shoulder, as casual as ever. Ron, Merry Christmas. Your robe is very unique. Ron's face flushed a deep purple, freckles standing out like little stars. Come on, Derek, if we stay here any longer, I'm going to lose my mind. One last thing to say to you, Ronald Weasley. Hermione grabbed Derek's wrist and tugged him forward, fuming. Who I choose as my dance partner is my business, and you, a pathetic worm, next time there's a ball, if you try to ask me before anyone else, you're not my backup. And if you dare ask me, my answer is, absolutely not. I already have a partner, and dancing with him makes me happy. With that, she spun around and dragged Derek out of the great hall. Hermione gripped Derek's wrist as they strode out into the entrance hall. The front doors were open, and the fairy lights in the rose garden sparkled. Low shrubs, elaborately winding paths, and enormous stone statues framed the space, with the faint sound of water hinting at a fountain somewhere nearby. People sat on intricately carved benches. Derek was tugged along winding paths through the rose bushes. Hermione's breathing was heavy, and her grip on his wrist tightened with every step. Hermione, Hermione, Derek said helplessly. Please, my wrist is going to swell. Hermione finally released him, lifted her robe, and sat down on a stone bench, staring blankly at the stone path beneath her. How about some cold lemonade? Derek held out the untouched cup in his right hand, taking a sip from the left-hand one, which had spilled most of its contents. I also got chocolate chip cookie ice cream. You'll like it. Hermione took the cup without a word and gulped it down, choking in the process. Derek quickly set the cup down and patted her back. Cough! Yeah, cough, cough! Sorry! Hermione's voice was hoarse. Cough, cough! I ruined everything. Derek shook his head. I want to thank you, Hermione, he said. Under the twinkling magical lights, Hermione looked at the red mark on his left wrist, her eyes full of dejection. Oh, don't comfort me, she muttered. I know I ruined tonight. You didn't, Derek said firmly. Tonight was perfect. I want to thank you for your praise. What? What praise? Hermione was utterly confused. The words you just said in the great hall, Derek smiled, looking into her eyes. You said you were happy to dance with me. Isn't that the best compliment a dance partner can give? Hermione's lips parted slightly, her pretty brown eyes sparkling. She turned toward the rose bushes, biting her lip gently. You're still just comforting me. Now Derek had a chance to focus on her lips. You didn't finish telling me earlier, and then the ball started, but I noticed your teeth. They're different, he said. Different how? Hermione said, pressing her lips together. Your front teeth used to stick out a little, and the others weren't symmetrical. Now they're straight and aligned and sized properly, too. Hermione shot him an annoyed glance. You notice everything. Should I praise you again, Mr. Greengrass? She said. No, Derek said. I was just curious. All right, if you really want to know, Hermione said, giving him another glare. Before Christmas, Sirius sent me a bunch of promotional brochures. I found one for a magic product that adjusts facial features, like removing blemishes, darkening eyebrows, and so on. One of them fixed teeth, so I bought it and slightly adjusted mine. She unconsciously curled her lips into a small smile. My parents won't be happy. For years I've been trying to convince them to let me reduce my teeth size, but they wanted me to stick with the braces. You know, they're dentists. They believe magic and teeth shouldn't mix. Her mischievous smile grew, and the two of them laughed together. You were beautiful already. Now even more so, Derek said. And your hair? Smoothing potion, Hermione said with a smile. My hair isn't very cooperative. This afternoon I used half a bottle to get it to stay down for the ball, but doing this every day would be too much. Only for the Yule Ball, Derek echoed, tugging at his robe. This fitted robe isn't ideal for me. Almost no room for my wand. By the way, want some ice cream? He glanced up at the ice cream, but unfortunately, one cup had tipped silently into the rose bushes, staining the petals, while the other wobbled precariously, about to fall. I almost forgot, Derek said, hastily grabbing the cup and holding it out to the girl. Here, try some. Hermione took the cup, her slender fingers curling around the small spoon. She scooped a bite, poised to taste it, then paused and held the cup between them. Let's eat together. The other spoon's already in the flower bed, Derek said, spreading his hands. Do you want me to savor the scent of the soil instead? Hermione smiled and drew her wand from her robe. You are a Hogwarts champion. You can't forget your magic, she said, tapping the golden spoon with her wand. Duplicate it. She handed the real spoon to Derek while keeping the copied one for herself, digging a generous scoop of ice cream into her mouth. Derek followed suit. Spoonful by spoonful, they quickly polished off the ice cream. The air grew quiet. Hermione leaned against Derek, her head resting lightly on his shoulder, wand tapping her palm softly, not speaking. For some reason, sitting together in the garden like this made Derek suddenly nervous. His palms were slightly clammy, and every time he opened his mouth, no words came. Why was he tense? They weren't strangers. They'd spent time together in the library, empty classrooms, the grounds, and by the Black Lake, reading, studying, chatting, or strolling. Everything had been easy. But here in this rose garden specially prepared for the Christmas ball, he felt uneasy. What was it about this place? His mind felt foggy, unable to pinpoint the reason, but a sliver of rational thought nudged him. He couldn't just sit here in the cold with his partner. He needed to say something, do something, remember all the preparations he'd made for this evening, think about how to liven up the outdoor atmosphere. Well, Hermione turned her head, gazing at him gently. I was trying to say... What? Hermione prompted. What is it, Derek? She asked, her eyes flickering in the dim light. I was wondering. Not that. Do you still want to dance? Derek stammered. You mean go back to the hall? Hermione asked. That question was expected, and Derek exhaled in relief. No, I mean right here. Do you want to dance? He said more confidently. Hermione looked around. Flowers and winding paths surrounded them. Where's the floor and the music? She blinked, puzzled. No problem at all. Follow me, Derek said, standing and walking a few steps, waving her over. I have a good idea. You're not planning to have me dance in the rose bushes, are you? Hermione said with a laugh, standing and following him. That might look perfect, but it'd be uncomfortable. Absolutely not, Derek promised. He led her along winding paths, taking random turns at junctions, the bushes around them rustling with quiet laughter. Most of the students who had left the ball early were here, she enjoying a rare moment of privacy. I think you're just wandering aimlessly, Hermione said after 5 minutes. You don't really know where you're going, do you? Of course I do, Derek said. I've found it. They arrived at a small clearing with a unicorn statue at the center. Beyond the dense roses and shrubs, a fountain sprayed sparkling water, and farther still, a massive stone reindeer stood guard. This is a nice little dance floor, Hermione said, eyes bright with anticipation. But what about music? Patience, one step at a time, Derek said, drawing his wand and waving it like a conductor. Music began to play. This is too soft, Hermione teased, smiling. Play something livelier. All right. Derek flicked his wand, and the notes leapt into a brisk, joyful rhythm, sending circular ripples through the air. Music, check. Now, lights. He traced a broad curve with his wand. The moonlight dimmed locally, concentrating into a bright circle in front of the unicorn statue. Hermione covered her mouth in awe. How did you do that? She asked. Is this a new spell you've learned? Now is not the time for questions, Derek said, raising his eyebrows and twirling his wand. Finally, let's add some decoration. Rose petals from the nearby bushes lifted, swirling around the light circle. Derek slipped his wand back into his robe, stepped in front of Hermione, left hand behind his back, right hand extended, bowing slightly in invitation. Hermione hesitated, then lifted her right leg behind the left in a graceful cross. lowered herself slightly, and placed her hand in his. Derek's eyes went blank for half a second. Their gazes met and quickly shifted, both brimming with amusement. Trying to look at each other too long would have made them laugh. Then, as half an hour ago, he took her hand and stepped into the circle, moving slowly with the rhythm. "This feels completely different from dancing in the hall," Hermione said, the breeze rustling around them. "Maybe because it's just the two of us?" "Maybe because this dance floor was made just for us," Derek said, neck slightly stiff, chest warming. The music was cheerful, but they moved leisurely, savoring the moonlit floor. As the magic faded, the music softened, the light circle dimmed, and petals fell to the ground. When the final note trembled and vanished into the night, they held their last pose, eyes locked, neither speaking. The tension that had just filled the air suddenly returned to Derek, his heart hammering wildly as a jumble of thoughts collided in his mind, leaving him dazed. Normally, in such moments of mental chaos, he would use the mind lock technique to sort his emotions. But now, facing the girl's brown eyes, he forgot everything else. One hand wrapped around her waist, the other interlaced with hers. He stared at her, rooted to the spot. There's a petal on your shoulder," Derek finally said, his voice unfamiliar even to himself. "I'll take it off for you." Hermione's eyelashes trembled, shading her eyes. Her rosy lips seemed to part to speak, then faltered, finally letting out a faint, barely audible, Derek brushed the petal away, but his hand did not leave her shoulder. Instinctively, he pressed her slightly closer, lowering his head toward her cheek. Hermione leaned back just a fraction, then rested her fragile frame in his arms, her eyelids fluttering as she slowly closed them. Two deep blushes rose across her smooth face. The space between them shrank. Derek couldn't think. All reason seemed to vanish. His mind stalled, yet he could almost count her eyelashes, feel the warmth of her face, the breath from her lips. He wanted to lean just a little closer, when, suddenly, a sharp voice shattered the quiet of the garden. "How dare you! I've never been so insulted in my life!" Shh! The piercing voice hit them like a stinging hex. Derek and Hermione snapped out of their reverie, stepping back in a flash and breaking their hold on each other. "Half-blood giant? Me? I'm just big-boned." The woman's voice cut through the night like a whip, scattering nearby fairy lights in the rose bushes. A tall, furious woman stormed off, pushing past flowers and startling flocks of tiny, colorful fairies into the air. Nearby, on a stone bench beside a carved reindeer, a massive, shadowy figure sat. A minute later, it rose and strode purposefully into the darkened area. "That's Mrs. Maxime and Hagrid," Hermione whispered. "Obvious. You couldn't find anyone that size at Hogwarts," Derek said. As soon as he said it, both remembered what they had been about to do before being interrupted. Hermione dropped her gaze, heels scraping the ground. A strange jolt hit Derek, as if his heart had been left behind when they stepped back. He opened his mouth, unsure what to say. What should he say? Sorry I lost control? Sorry the moment was too beautiful, I couldn't help myself? Or say nothing, go hug her, and continue what we started? The last thought sprang from the depths of his mind, startling even him. He shook his head hard, willing his mind's machinery to snap back into place. Then he remembered the real tool that would restore clarity, mind lock technique. Like a bucket of cold water poured over a blazing summer day, his restless thoughts froze, fell still. Layer by layer, extraneous emotions stripped away. His mind functioned as he intended again. Overall, the night had been utterly delightful. They had laughed and talked endlessly, danced in perfect sync, intuitively reading each other. Even small frustrations faded under the joy of the ball. Yet at the final dance, he had held Hermione close, nearly kissed her. And then Derek realized that sorting out tonight's events did nothing to tell him what to do next. The head resting on his neck, his own mind at this point, felt like a mere decoration. Hermione, I'm sorry. I just lost myself for a moment. Sorry. I think I got confused because I don't even know what I'm saying or what I should do now. He scrambled for words, but they came out garbled and awkward. Hermione buried her face in his chest, cheeks blazing red, gripping her robe and wrinkling it in her hands. After a long while, she quietly uttered a soft, What did mean? Derek was once again lost. If Hermione was upset, he'd apologize. If she said it didn't matter, well, he'd still apologize. If she was pleased, Then he hadn't even thought that far. It's getting a little cold, Derek ventured. Do you want to head back or take another walk? After a pause, Hermione quietly replied, Let's go back. I want to return to the common room. All right, no problem. I'll take you back to Gryffindor Tower. Derek exhaled, relieved. As long as Hermione gave a clear answer, he knew what to do next. Side by side, they walked along the path, slipping into awkward silence. Hermione stole glances at him, quickly lowering her head each time. Derek racked his brain for conversation topics. Damn it, why did he need to think about what to say when he was with Hermione before? After a few minutes, he thought of a line that wasn't great, but wasn't terrible either. Just now, you heard what Maxime said to Hagrid, right? He said. Hermione's cheeks flushed again the moment she heard the word, just now. By the time Derek finished his sentence, she shook her head slightly, a hint of disappointment in her expression, then shrugged. Honestly, this isn't exactly a shocking discovery, right? She murmured. Look at their size. How could it be achievable by normal people? Madame Maxim said it's just a big frame. If it were Pansy Parkinson, I might believe it. But Maxim, she shook her head again. There's probably nothing bigger than her except a purebred giant. Half-blood giants really impressive, Derek said slowly. I admire Dumbledore, and I admire Maxim too. As usual, Hermione quickly followed his train of thought. Like Professor Lupin? Exactly like Professor Lupin, Derek said. You grew up in an ordinary family and haven't been exposed to magic for very long. Some things, well, they seep into a wizard's bones. It's just a matter of depth. How do you mean? Hermione asked. Your parents surely taught you to make friends with well-behaved children, to avoid shady streets, troublemakers, and villains. Stay away from danger. In the magical world, those negative roles just transform into outcasts and dark wizards, Derek explained. Werewolves, vampires, giants, trolls, banshees, you can slot them in freely. It works every time. Wait, vampires? Hermione asked. Do they really exist? They're nearly extinct. Their way of life makes it extremely hard to find room to survive, Derek said. Take werewolves as a comparison. When they're not transformed, they live normal wizard lives. Tough, yes, but still living. Vampires are different. A werewolf can be confined until the full moon, but a vampire goes mad if it doesn't feed. The less blood it gets, the more frenzied it becomes, the more aggressive. Its purpose is to feed. No species will selflessly let it parasitize. So under pressure from both ordinary people and wizards, they're almost wiped out. A familiar spark of curiosity lit up in Hermione's eyes. How do you know all this? I've never read it in any book. Derek spread his hands and exhaled a deep, relieved breath. Finally, the conversation returned to familiar rhythm. Ignotus Academy and Hogwarts are on different continents, and there's no unified standard for magical education. So, you get it. What else does Ignotus teach that Hogwarts doesn't? Hermione asked, intrigued. Come on, I only spent 2 years at Ignotus. How could I possibly know everything? Derek said with a helpless smile. Mostly the courses have different names, but the content is similar. Well, except for magical history. Oh, I see. For the first time, I realize you're not actually a walking encyclopedia. Hermione rolled her eyes. Can you tell me about Ignotus' sorting ceremony? It's similar to Hogwarts. Ignotus has 4 houses, Longhorn Serpent, Cat Leopard, Thunderbird, and Goblin, Derek explained. New students are called one by one to stand on the Gordy knot in the center of the hall, above which float 4 magical statues. If Longhorn Serpent wants the student, its forehead crystal glows, Cat Leopard roars, Thunderbird flaps its wings and flies, Goblin raises its bow and arrow. That's very different from the sorting hat, Hermione noted keenly. What if more than one statue reacts? Then the choice is up to the student, Derek said. But that's extremely rare, maybe once in 10 years. And you, Derek, which house were you in? Derek smiled. I chose Longhorn Serpent. That sounds amazing. Wait, you said you chose. Hermione's excitement surged. When I was sorted, both Longhorn Serpent and Thunderbird reacted, Derek said. I ended up choosing Longhorn Serpent. You're a once-in-a-decade special student, kind of like Harry when he entered, Hermione said, slightly annoyed. How come it sounds so ordinary when you say it? Fame comes with pressure. You must have seen that with Harry, Derek said calmly. I understand. So what do the houses represent? Hermione's curiosity grew. Like Gryffindor's courage. Ignotus doesn't categorize as clearly as Hogwarts, Derek explained. But roughly, Longhorn Serpent is wisdom, Cat Leopard is body, Goblin is heart, Thunderbird is soul. You chose wisdom over soul? Hermione asked. Why weren't you in Ravenclaw last year? Probably because my attitude toward knowledge didn't fit Ravenclaw standards, Derek admitted. I only absorb what's useful to me. At Ignotus, I often faked star observation assignments. Luckily, I have you here now. Anything else? Hermione tilted her head, brushing her hair aside, pretending she hadn't heard his confession about homework, eager to know more. Derek nodded eagerly. This was exactly the conversation he wanted. Let's talk about wands. Britain is conservative, but magical governance is fairly lenient, he said. In North America, wand control is extremely strict. Every wizard must carry a wand license. Congress tracks all magical activity and identifies offenders by wand. That sounds fair, Hermione said approvingly. For underage wizards, we leave traces on us. You just need a permit. Not much difference. Far from it. Wand shops in North America rarely sell single wands, especially to minors. Artisans make batches and sell them directly to Ignotus, hardly interacting with the users, Derek sighed. Ah! The new students? Hermione exclaimed in surprise. In the U.S., underage witches and wizards can only choose their wand in the wand hall after completing their sorting at Ilvermorny. During the holidays, wands cannot be taken off campus. Only witches and wizards who have reached 17 may legally possess a wand outside school. These rules come from the International Statute of Secrecy, Derek explained. In 1926, there was a major leak in New York. Half the city was destroyed, and the North American magical community nearly got exposed. Since then, more and more clauses have been added to the statute. What happened? Hermione asked, eyes wide with fear. I don't know. The records from 1926 are still top secret. My mother can see them, but she won't tell me, Derek said, leaning on the staircase railing with a hint of melancholy. I wish you knew. I could include that story in my History of Magic paper, Hermione said regretfully. Derek twitched at the corner of his eye. Then Hermione let out a startled shout, her eyes wide, fixed firmly on him. I've found a problem. Derek glanced at her, puzzled. What problem? Your wand. That was a gift from your grandfather, Hermione said rapidly. That violates Ilvermorny rules. Minors aren't allowed to possess a wand off campus. You could pursue a career in law someday, Hermione. You're sharp, Derek praised. But in this case, the law is rigid, and people are flexible. There's always a workaround, right? I have a feeling you're about to bring up your mother again, Hermione said knowingly. From what you've told me, she seems almost omnipotent. My mother did play a major role, but she wasn't the key factor, Derek said. The real issue lies in wizard property law and magical contracts. Hermione tilted her head, listening carefully. Simply put, my wand is 100% mine, but Ilvermorny students' wands belong to the school. For magical transactions, it's not enough to just exchange money. It's a magical contract representing property transfer. Students only pay for their wand when they reach adulthood. Before then, the wand belongs to the school, and students must use it according to school rules, Derek explained. But since my wand was a gift perfectly matched to me, the school has no right to interfere. They can only ask my mother to sign a pledge ensuring I don't use it irresponsibly during holidays. But didn't you say you study spells over the summer? Hermione asked skeptically. Were you just doing theoretical research from books? My mother broke the agreement, he said calmly. Huh. Hermione made a sound of vague surprise. There's a Muggle saying, truth is only within canon range, Derek shrugged. It applies in the magical world too. No matter how fancy your contract, a skilled wizard can bypass it. My parents studied it for half a month and secretly nullified it. I see, Hermione said weakly. Mrs. Greengrass really can do anything. And you're probably the luckiest student alive. No restrictions, licensed to carry, free to use your wand. Your American classmates would die of envy. They can't even own their own wands. Derek smiled faintly, a peculiar look of nostalgia in his eyes. At that moment, they stopped in front of Gryffindor Tower, facing the portrait of the fat lady. We're here. Let's go back and get some rest, Hermione, Derek said. The previously comfortable atmosphere vanished instantly. The events of just minutes ago lingered in Hermione's mind. Her cheeks turned pink again, and she neither spoke the password to the portrait nor indicated she wanted to continue chatting. She stood there, gripping the edges of her robe, fidgeting with it. Derek stood awkwardly, unsure what to do. He had nearly kissed her. He couldn't just make a few small comments and act like nothing happened. He ran a hand through his hair, then resolved to try. Slowly, he lifted his arm toward Hermione's right hand, testing the approach. Her right hand twitched, then froze in place. She didn't pull away, trembling slightly, maintaining a tentative touch. Derek could faintly feel the warmth of her skin and the fine hairs on the back of her hand. He cleared his throat and moved his hand forward, taking her delicate hand and gently lifting it. Hermione lowered her gaze, staring hard at the floor tiles. Her fingers twitched, unsure whether to pull away or hold tighter, then remained still. Hermione, you looked absolutely stunning today. I was in such a daze earlier and acted like a fool. I'm truly sorry, Derek said earnestly. Even now, I'm still a bit dizzy. I can hardly believe I nearly kissed the most beautiful girl tonight. Hermione's fingers clenched slightly, her brow eased, and the corner of her mouth curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Go get some rest, okay? Derek continued. I'll tidy myself up too, and then... He didn't get to finish. A moving staircase slid into place at the edge of the corridor with a heavy, grinding sound. Ron Weasley stomped up to the 8th floor, and the moment he saw them, everything froze. For a few seconds, the three of them stood in an awkward silence, until Ron forced a strained, unnatural grin, almost like he was making a face on purpose. Oh, sorry. Did I interrupt something? He said in a sarcastic sing-song tone. The pink flush on Hermione's cheeks vanished instantly. She pulled her hand away, her face hardening like stone, and muttered the command, Light of Wonderland, to the portrait before slipping silently into the Hufflepuff common room. One last glance back was enough. She shot Ron a freezing glare. Derek couldn't quite tell if he was relieved or quietly seething. He nodded at Ron and headed toward the stairs. As they passed, Ron spoke again. Going to chase after her, Derek? He asked, still in that mocking tone. You heard the password already, or do you need me to repeat it? Derek slowly turned his head, regarding him with calm indifference. Ron, you're a good person, he said. Please don't give me a reason to dislike you, all right? Then he strode down the stairs. Back in the Hufflepuff common room, Derek flopped onto a sofa, resting his head on his arm, staring at the night sky through the round window. Now he had time and space to sort through his thoughts. He, Derek Greto, had almost kissed Hermione Granger tonight. How had it happened? Was it because they were dance partners, shared a dance, spent time alone under the moon, and let a spark of intimacy slip through? Or was it because their bond had already evolved beyond mere friendship, with the dance acting as a catalyst? After a moment of reflection, Derek had to admit it. Hermione was now his closest friend. They deepened their understanding through studying, extended it into daily life, and eventually reached this intimate closeness. No other girl had ever penetrated his social world as deeply. He even shared fragments of his past life with her, trivial as they might be. At the same time, Hermione got upset over Fleur Delacour's invitation to him, felt uneasy about Victor Krum's invitation to her, and could be frustrated or downed by minor disruptions at the ball. Did this mean she shared his confusion, suddenly realizing the boundaries of friendship were blurring, and pure camaraderie was gradually transforming with the tides of emotion? The question then became methodological. What should he do? Did he want to remain Hermione's confidant, or to become her true heart's companion? And more importantly, what was Hermione thinking? Then 5 sturdy fingers blocked the window, waving back and forth. Ernie Macmillan stood beside the sofa, smiling at him. You're back early, Ernie said. Not dancing with Miss Granger a little longer? No, Derek replied, standing to make room for him. We were both a bit tired. Ernie made a silly face and plopped down beside him. Was all that passion exhausting? Have you been drinking again? Derek frowned. Don't pretend, mate. No need for that, Ernie patted his shoulder. I saw everything. Saw what? Derek asked. How you two looked dancing. Ernie winked. Couldn't take your eyes off each other, could you? At that moment, the circular door to the common room creaked open. Justin staggered in, wearing a goofy grin. Here, Ernie waved. Justin seemed unaware of being called until Ernie impatiently pulled him onto the sofa, bringing him back to reality. "Ernie, Derek, good evening," Justin said absent-mindedly. "Having fun?" "Wow, truly amazing," Ernie exclaimed. "The ball was perfect. Look at you two, you're practically drained of soul." "You judging us like that? How about yourself?" Derek said lightly. "Care to explain?" Ernie's cheeks puffed up, then deflated like a deflating balloon. "Ah, Merlin is cruel, never lets things be perfect," he muttered. "She seemed to prefer dancing with the older boys." "So how did you manage to ask that Bobottons girl to dance?" Derek asked. "Don't know," Ernie admitted. "I saw her in the corridor, thought she looked nice, so I asked. She said yes." "And then?" Derek asked. "What did you do after that?" "Nothing. We just danced tonight," Ernie replied blankly. Derek sighed. "All you've got left is talk, Ernie," Derek teased. "Why not use your brain a little?" Ernie stared at him, confused. "It's obvious she had a good first impression of you, so she accepted your invitation. But after that, you didn't follow up. No chatting, no walks, no introducing Hogwarts," Derek said. "From the moment you invited her to the start of the ball, you were basically invisible. But she's a Beauxbatons girl, very pretty, so other guys would naturally step in and invite her. Compare one absent dance partner versus a stream of new suitors. Think, wouldn't she feel disappointed or annoyed being ignored?" Ernie's face flushed red and then pale. Justin looked on, impressed by Derek. "You know your stuff, Derek? Are you going to win big tonight?" Ernie asked, annoyed but curious. "Tomorrow, can I see you paired up with Miss Granger?" The topic that Justin interrupted earlier had circled back. Derek tapped the sofa armrest unconsciously. Did it seem to an observer that his relationship with Hermione had already reached a level even they hadn't realized? "Only one night, and all this could happen?" Derek said calmly. "What gave you that idea?" Ernie had to struggle to keep from rolling his eyes. "Fine, fine. I'll keep giving hints. Let's see how long you can pretend not to notice," he continued. "After becoming a champion, you rarely stayed in the common room. Where did you go?" "The library and empty classrooms." Derek answered silently in his mind. "In the library, who were you with?" Ernie asked, then answered himself. "Hermione Granger." "In class, who did you sit with?" he continued, answering aloud. "Hermione Granger." "Who comes looking for you at our table when you have free time?" he asked, then answered. "Hermione Granger." "Before the ball, you stopped going to the library and brought a stack of books on dancing back to your dorm. Who was that for?" he summarized. "Hermione Granger." "So," Ernie spread his hands as if presenting an obvious proof. "Do you want me to keep going, Derek? I've got several more examples." Derek noticed that Ernie's expression had taken on that inscrutable, serious look often seen on Snape's face. "Thanks for your thorough analysis, Ernie," Derek said calmly. "I'm going back to sleep." He walked quickly toward the dormitory, with Ernie and Justin giggling behind him. Inside, the dorm was full of festive cheer. House elves, certainly theirs, had decorated with a Christmas tree, Santa hats, ornaments, bells, and ribbons, even tracing tiny Christmas trees along the edges of the curtains. Derek brushed away a spinning ornament hovering near his head, changed into his pajamas, and slipped under the covers. The house elves had already placed the brass bed warmer inside, leaving the bed cozy, warm, and drowsy. Half asleep, the most pressing question returned to Derek's mind. Deep down, did he want to be friends with Hermione Granger, or something more? Chapter 68, Herbology Class. Once December 25th passed, the festive atmosphere began to fade day by day, not just because the highlight of the year, the Christmas ball, was now behind them, but also because the holidays were almost over. Those who had spent the break entirely focused on fun, like Ernie and Justin, now had to settle down and think about the homework the teachers had left behind. After a few days of careful consideration, they made one choice: to follow Derek's example. But even Derek couldn't relax completely. With Christmas gone, 1994 was essentially at its end, and February 24th loomed large. Yet he still had no clue about the golden egg. After failing to find books on screens in the library, he spent several days letting his mind wander wildly, hoping inspiration would strike to unlock its secrets. That proved hopeless. After locking himself in the dorm for an hour, listening to the scream and trying to chart the tonal changes, he realized he might need to take some unconventional measures. Looking at the first task as a reference, he could easily conclude the competition organizers intended to force champions to face unimaginable challenges. Insisting on using only ordinary methods would be too rigid. Although Maxime